City of Lubbock property owners may get hit with a pricey plumbing bill after the city council voted to change an ordinance. For years, the city handled repairs or replacements to private sewer lateral lines in public right-of-ways like streets or alleys.
But that's no longer the case. Investigative reporter Shaley explains in tonight's Ordinance Outrage.
Mackenzie Buckner purchased her first home about 5 years ago.
It didn't feel real till the first night I stayed here. And then, of course, it definitely felt real when I made the first payment on the house.
But Home Sweet Home hasn't smelled so sweet lately.
I was met with this ungodly odor, just smelled like an outhouse.
She says she called a plumber who told her the issue was in the alley, a public right-of-way, which meant the city's pipeline maintenance crews would handle the repairs.
It started a week-long ordeal of trying to get a response from the city. By this point, I have other people's sewage in my backyard, and that's a health hazard to me, my dogs.
Lubbock homeowner Jenny Bowler also had a sewer line issue in her alley and says it took city crews weeks to respond.
I contacted them every couple of weeks just to check on it. In the meantime, the overflow is spilling out into the backyard.
Lubbock City Manager Jarrett Atkinson says the process was inefficient.
It did generate a lot of complaints, a lot of really coordination type issues.
This is one of the reasons why the Public Works Department recommended an amendment to the ordinance, which the council approved in October. It went into effect in January.
It allows a licensed plumber to do that work all the way from the home to where the sewer main is.
The ordinance requires property owners to hire city-approved contractors to complete the work. But the licensed plumbers we spoke to, like Willa Rousa with Flatland Plumbing, say they were just as surprised as homeowners to learn of the change.
I called in for a lateral repair, and the lady at the office said they no longer do it, that it's now the customer's responsibility.
When you heard that, what was your immediate thought?
I was like, that's expensive.
Some of the plumbers who I've spoken with said that they were not contacted about this change. Who was responsible from the city for contacting the licensed plumbers in our area?
The Public Works Group, which is who put the change to the ordinance together and recommended it, they did meet with the plumbers. Did they meet with all of them? I don't know. Probably not.
When the Public Works Department presented the amendment to the council, staff estimated it would reduce city operational and capital improvement costs by an estimated $800,000 annually. And while the city is now saving money, property owners tell us they're getting hit with big bills.
I got the estimate in, and that's, $6,500. It's like nobody has that money. So, I don't know how they're expecting homeowners to pay for something that's on the city property.
Homeowner Zeke Patton says he paid a plumber to replace the line in his backyard, only to learn there were more issues with the line in the right-of-way.
So we ended up contacting the city, and they told us that basically they're not responsible for it anymore, and there's a list of plumbers that we would have to call to do the alley work.
Patton says his plumber, also surprised by the news, hadn't applied to be on the city's list, so he had to hire another company to finish the work.
They came out and told me it was going to be $3,500. And we're in such a rush because we haven't had a sewer line for a week and a half to 2 weeks that drains. We don't have time to shop around and see who all else is going to do it. I've called about 3 or 4 other plumbers just trying to get a ballpark estimate, and nobody will tell me without coming out to look, and they're all backed up.
We took property owners' concerns to councilman and mayoral candidate Mark McBrayer.
Did city council have any idea that it would be this expensive for homeowners when we switched the ordinance?
I certainly didn't. When it came to us, it seemed like a good decision based on the information we had. I had no idea how much that might cost.
Councilman and mayoral candidate Steve Massengale says he stands by the council's decision.
Is the cost of that last piece of the line, that small piece of the line, should your neighbor pay for that? Or should you pay for that? And at the end of the day, it's the property owner's line, and I think that's why I can justify supporting the policy change.
Patton says the estimate on the portion of line in the public right-of-way is high.
8 foot of alley work is more expensive than the whole inside line.
And these property owners have theories on what caused the damage to begin with.
The cause was not actually the sewer tap itself, but the lateral line that was connected to the sewer line where the dump truck drives over it. And the settlement over the years has caused it to where it's no longer a downgrade on it. It has a portion of it that flows uphill, which is preventing the sewer line from completely draining.
I'm not driving down my alley to crush these sewer taps. I feel like it's utility vehicles that are doing it and garbage trucks that are doing it. And I don't think that it's fair to not maintain what infrastructure's here in the alley and then push it off onto the homeowners.
The people that I spoke with, they think that it could be the trash truck. If it's a city vehicle that could possibly be causing the damage, they don't think they should be responsible for paying for that.
They're welcome to get with us, and we'll look into that. Remember, the most common cause of failure is just age of the line. The second, it's going to be usually where trees and roots and things have gotten into it. Once the line leaves your property line, your fence in the example that we've been using, it generally starts to dive down pretty quick and get pretty deep. So it would not say that that's not possible. I'd say it's probably not likely.
Oh no, we've seen it. We see it all the time, where the sewer line, where the trash trucks will run, and it's just dirt. It washes out, of course, and with the weight of the trucks, it's going to crush it. It's going to push down on the pipes.
If I put you on the spot here, is this something you will take to council?
Yeah, I'll ask us to revisit it. So we need to be responsible with how we address that issue and not unnecessarily push problems off on the homeowner if there's a better way to do that. So I'm certainly happy to, and I will be asking us to take a look at that again.
We had a hard time finding the list of city-approved contractors. We also had trouble locating the information needed for licensed plumbers to apply for a right-of-way permit, which is required to be a city-approved contractor. City staff sent us that information, which we've included with this story on our website. If you think a city vehicle is responsible for damaging your property, you can file a claim. You'll also find that information on our website, and we'll let you know if the council takes up this ordinance again. Karen and Abner.
Changes appear to be on the way to a City of Lubbock ordinance. Earlier this year, we told you the City Council voted to make property owners responsible for repairs to private sewer lateral lines in public right-of-ways like streets and alleys. Residents told us the change is costing them thousands of dollars in plumbing bills. Investigative reporter Shaley took your complaints to elected officials who say they hear you.
Earlier this year, we introduced you to property owners across Lubbock who are about to be hit with pricey plumbing bills.
$10,000 to $15,000 is kind of the estimate that I had been hearing.
I got the estimate in, and that's, $6,500.
They came out and told me it was going to be $3,500.
Property owners have always been responsible for repairs or replacements to their private sewer lateral lines within their fence line. But since 2006, the City of Lubbock pipeline maintenance crews have handled the work on those lines in public rights-of-way like streets and alleys. City Manager Jared Atkinson says the process caused delays.
It's pretty slow for the customers. It did generate a lot of complaints, a lot of really coordination type issues.
Which is one of the reasons why city staff proposed an amendment to the ordinance that would require property owners to hire a city-approved contractor to complete the work on the portion of the line that runs from their fence line to the city main.
I think this is a benefit to the consumer. There's no longer now that lag or that gap where the plumber's working on one side, we're scheduling a crew to come and work on the other side. We do estimate this to produce about an $800,000 savings to our operations.
The amendment passed unanimously in October and went into effect in January, which is when the complaints started to pile up.
I'm not driving down my alley to crush these sewer taps. I feel like it's utility vehicles that are doing it. I don't think that it's fair to not maintain what infrastructure's here in the alley and then push it off onto the homeowners.
We took residents' concerns to Councilman and mayoral candidate Mark McBrayer.
Did City Council have any idea that it would be this expensive for homeowners when we switched the ordinance?
I certainly didn't. When it came to us, it seemed like a good decision based on the information we had.
If I put you on the spot here, is this something you will take to council?
Yeah, I'll ask us to revisit it. So we need to be responsible with how we address that issue and not unnecessarily push problems off on the homeowner.
We also spoke with Councilman and mayoral candidate Steve Massengale.
Is the cost of that last piece of the line, that small piece of the line, should your neighbor pay for that? or should you pay for that? And at the end of the day, it's the property owner's line, and I think that's why I can justify supporting the policy change.
To those people here in Lubbock who are saying this is way too much money, what's your response to that?
None of us want to be in a sewer line down situation, but there's a lot of things that cost money as a property owner.
Do you think there could be a win-win where the city crews are still taking care of this to help alleviate the cost for property owners, but you're doing it faster?
I don't know if there is. You know, the sewer department, just like the water department, you can even include LP&L. I mean, there's just a lot of demand on everything they do. They do so many more things and we need them for so many more things than what might be associated with something in the right-of-way or beyond the fence line. So I don't know the answer to that.
After our story aired, Massengale posted this to social media. After listening to citizens' concerns, Councilwoman Joy and I have asked staff to work on a revised sewer line ordinance that addresses city responsiveness for repairs and relieves the financial burden on property owners. Last time we spoke, you were in favor of the amendment to the ordinance, but I understand things may have changed. What happened?
What's changed since we've talked and your story ran is I've seen some of the invoices and some of the cost impact to our citizens, and also have seen great disparity in the prices given to some of those citizens when they need that work done.
I know initially your argument was it shouldn't be your neighbor paying for your private sewer lateral line. And it was going to save like $800,000.
The savings piece is not motivation, or wasn't motivation for me to support the ordinance. What I heard was we weren't being responsive enough. And, you know, it's we work hard to make sure we're responsive to citizens' needs here.
I know in this first story that we did, Mark McBrayer said he wanted to look into it. At the time you thought it was good the way it was. Did you approach Latrell Joy about going in on this together?
So I think Latrell and I were simultaneously talking to staff, and I just felt like I'd had enough input after we had considered it and after your story ran that we need to take another look at it.
Councilwoman Latrell Joy says she did not realize the ramifications until she started to receive complaints from constituents.
Do you think that you had all of the information you needed to vote?
No. This was something that should have been handled in a work session. The minute that I realized the impact that this was having, I said, no, I want it changed.
When I interviewed the city manager, he said that it was kind of a cost savings of $800,000, and it sounded like they maybe didn't have the staff to continue to take on this work.
The solution is, if you don't have the staff, then you come to the council with a budget that says, I need to add another crew. That's pretty easy to do in our budget, but you don't do what was done in October.
Joy says they also need to work with the property owners who are now out thousands of dollars.
The one case that I've investigated more, it was $4,500 for the property side of it and $4,500 for the alley side of it. So that's why I want a way for people that have had to pay to be compensated if we can do that.
We're told the city's legal team is drafting a revised ordinance, which should be on the March 26th agenda. Shaley Kidwell, KCBD, investigates.
Lubbock City Councilman Mark McBrayer says he is hopeful financial relief could be on the way for property owners. This is an update to our Ordinance Outrage investigation. Last night we told you more council members have agreed to revisit an unpopular ordinance that has left property owners out of thousands of dollars in plumbing bills. It's news McBrayer tells our investigative reporter Shaley Kidwell he is happy to hear.
An amendment that received unanimous approval from Lubbock City Council is now under review by a growing number of council members.
It's probably one of the biggest issues that I hear about. If we get something wrong, we need to be willing to admit that we got it wrong. I mean, that's what accountability, to me, for an elected official is all about.
We're not above going back and looking at things and making sure that we make it right for everybody.
The ramifications of it were not They really were not talked about. I just went, no, this is wrong. We have to fix this.
Property owners have always been responsible for work to their private sewer lateral lines within their fence line, but since 2006, city crews have handled repairs to those lines in public rights-of-way like streets and alleys. Last year, city staff suggested council change the ordinance to require property owners to hire a city-approved contractor to complete the work in those public rights-of-way.
I think this is a benefit to the consumer. There's no longer now that lag or that gap where the plumber's working on one side, we're scheduling a crew to come and work on the other side. We do estimate this to produce about an $800,000 savings to our operations.
A cost-saving measure for the city that property owners are now picking up.
$10,000 to $15,000 is kind of the estimate that I had been hearing.
I got the estimate in, and that's, $6,500.
They came out and told me it was going to be $3,500.
In our first report, we took citizens' complaints to Councilman and mayoral candidate Mark McBrayer.
Yeah, I'll ask us to revisit it. So we need to be responsible with how we address that issue and not unnecessarily push problems off on the homeowner.
We also spoke with Councilman and mayoral candidate Steve Massengale.
The cost of that last piece of the line, that small piece of the line, should your neighbor pay for that or should you pay for that? And at the end of the day, it's the property owner's line, and I think that's why I can justify supporting the policy change.
Shortly after our story aired, Massengale announced he and Councilwoman Latrell Joy would look into revising the ordinance.
What's changed since we've talked and your story ran is I've seen some of the invoices and some of the cost impact to our citizens, and also have seen great disparity in the prices given to some of those citizens when they need that work done.
McBrayer says with more council members in favor of revisiting the ordinance, property owners have a better chance of seeing financial relief.
I'm glad at this point that other city council people, Steve and Latrell, have said, yes, we need to take another look at it.
Last month, we introduced you to homeowner Zeke Patton, who was already out money to replace the line in his backyard when he learned he would have to pay for the alley work, too.
8 foot of alley work is more expensive than the whole inside line.
He says his plumber had a theory on what caused the issue.
Cause was not actually the sewer tap itself, but the lateral line that was connected to the sewer line where the dump truck drives over it. And the settlement over the years has caused it to where it's no longer a downgrade on it. It has a portion of it that flows uphill, which is preventing the sewer line from completely draining.
He says the work in the right-of-way cost him $3,500. Patton says he filed a claim with the City of Lubbock, but received this letter, which states the city's investigation determined the damage did not arise from an employee's use of a motor-driven vehicle or motor-driven equipment. Therefore, the city would be unable to make a payment. While a revised ordinance would help property owners in the future, council members tell us they also need to address those like Patton who are out thousands of dollars.
I think we need to look at that and see if we can't somehow make them whole.
McBrayer agrees.
If we made a mistake, we can't let these people who got caught in that gap pay for our mistake. I don't want people taking advantage of people because of that situation, and when the city can control that cost.
Another consideration, those neighborhoods that don't have alleys. So property owners' sewer lines run under the street.
But how many different contractors do you want out there working in the middle
on your
of
city streets?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, that's another thing. I think the city has a real interest in controlling that process. I don't think you want a bunch of different people working on that. You want to be in control of that to make sure that the streets are put back in the same condition that they were in before you did that work.
We're told the council will revisit the ordinance at Tuesday's meeting. This may be a moot point depending on what the council decides to do, but service line coverage does exist. This is typically a specialized type of coverage in residential property insurance. According to the Office of Public Insurance Counsel, companies often offer service line coverage as a limited amount with a special deductible. For example, $10,000 of coverage with a $500 deductible. Talk to to your agent or company to learn more about their service line coverage options. But before you make any decision, you may want to wait to see what the council plans to do. Abner.
More thing tonight, the City Council took the next steps in reverting an unpopular sewer ordinance this afternoon.
As we have reported, City Council voted to shift the repairs to private sewer lateral lines in public rights of way from the city to property owners.
The change went into effect in January, and since then, property owners tell us they are paying thousands of dollars in plumbing bills. So at today's council meeting, Councilwoman Latrell Joy said the City Council made a mistake.
My apologies to the people who live in this city for all this confusion. Sometimes things we do are just not right, and this one is not.
Lubbock Mayor Trey Payne, however, said the council should keep the ordinance the same since those lines belong to property owners. Despite the mayor's argument, council voted in favor of changing the ordinance.
This will require a second reading, though, and that is scheduled for next month. Getting a better idea tonight of when City of Lubbock crews will once again be responsible for repairs to private sewer lateral lines in public rights of ways.
As we have reported, the City Council voted to put this responsibility on property owners, but after pushback, they voted to revert the ordinance. We expect there to be a second reading of the ordinance on April 9th.
If it passes, it will go into effect the last week of April. KCBD News Channel 11's investigative reporter Shaley Kidwell has reaction from yesterday's meeting as the council prepares for the final vote in tonight's Ordinance Outrage report.
Council is one step closer to taking back responsibility for repairs to private sewer lateral lines in public rights of way. And while the residents we spoke with are happy that financial burden may no longer rest on property owners, they still have questions.
Well, I'm happy for now. The only thing I'll add is that I do hope that the city going forward will look for a way to deal with the responsiveness issue, whether that's hiring more crew or whether that's working with subcontractors, because it's not realistic for a lot of people to wait 3 weeks or more for their sewer line to be repaired.
I am very satisfied with the decision. I was not satisfied with what I heard from the city. I don't think that they addressed any of the questions that were really asked. I think they tried to dance around them.
Property owner Jody Patton brought a handful of concerns to council members.
It took probably 3 or 4 days to get a city-approved contractor out there, and it was $3,500, so double what it cost inside the fence. When they excavated the right-of-way, our line was crushed in the tire tracks where the trash trucks drive. Not only that, the city's tap was corroded and had to be replaced. Our plumber replaced it, and we filed a claim with the city only to have it denied because our plumber replaced it, and it should have been done by the city.
If a solid waste truck is found to have damaged a line, the city says it will still cover the cost under the current ordinance. Councilwoman Christy Martinez Garcia asked Assistant Director of Public Works John Turpin how often that's happened.
So during my 16-year career with the city, I'm only aware of one.
In his presentation, Turpin said the biggest culprit is Orangeburg pipe that's found in older homes.
The problem is it only has about a 30-year life. And once it starts failing, its failure method is crush. So we looked at 100 lateral lines at the request of Mr. McBrayer, and that gleaned out that 84% of these failures were on Orangeburg pipe.
City Manager Jared Atkinson says on average, the city would replace about 1,000 private sewer lateral lines a year at a cost of about $800,000. Councilwoman Dr. Jennifer Wilson asked staff if they've looked into what their city-approved contractors are charging.
We called the plumbers, and we did set up a spreadsheet to look into that. And it was a very wide-ranging cost. We saw anywhere from $600. We had several that were under $1,000, and then we had some that were up around $10,000.
If you look at it logically, and what the most common says is it's actually much cheaper for the city. But I also see the side of why is everybody paying for your neighbor's line? My concern is that with this type of line, knowing there is essentially a defective type of line in older parts of our city. That makes me worried for people that are in our lower socioeconomic groups to be able to come up with that in an older part of the city where that pipe is going to be traditionally versus the newer homes, which maybe have PVC now.
Councilwoman Latrell Joy says this ordinance was handled incorrectly from the beginning and says the city should bear the cost.
My apologies to the people who live in this city for all this confusion, and it can probably be fixed. But I have a problem when we don't talk to people about an ordinance change, but we talk to the plumbers on multiple occasions. Sometimes things we do are just not right, and this one is not.
But Mayor Trey Payne disagrees.
So we can't just look at this as some instances that, although are really sad when you have to spend $9,000 on a new sewer line, and some people have where, as Ms. Patton said, I think there was $1,500 before it got to that alleyway and then $3,500 afterwards. So somebody is not playing fair here. And so these do affect, but if you take this away, you affect everybody and everybody's budget and everybody's bottom dollar.
Despite Payne's argument, council voted in favor of reverting the ordinance, but it seems questions still linger for citizens and these elected officials. Shaley Kidwell, KCBD, investigates.
City of Lubbock will once again handle repairs to private sewer lateral lines in public rights-of-way.
This is an update to our Ordinance Outrage investigation. In October, the City Council voted to require property owners to hire city-approved contractors to complete the work on that section of the line.
Residents told our Investigates team the work cost them thousands of dollars. So today the council voted to revert the ordinance so city crews will once again handle the repairs.
But as KCBD News Channel 11's investigative reporter Shaley Kidwell explains, more changes could be on the way as the council gathers input from city staff, citizens, and plumbers.
Joe Rushing says his granddad started his family's plumbing business 75 years ago.
When I was a kid, we dug in the alley with a shovel.
Harmless fun that he says could get you into a lot of trouble today.
I told my guys, if you were in the alley with a backhoe or a shovel, you were fired. It's crazy. There's so much stuff under the ground.
Which is one of the reasons why John King with Bruce Thornton Air Conditioning says estimates for work in public rights-of-way can be high.
You don't want to cut a gas line, you don't want to cut utility lines, telecom stuff. So in order to do that, you have a specialized piece of equipment which is called a hydrovac. It's almost like a pressure washer and a vacuum at the same time.
King says his company purchased that pricey piece of equipment after City Council voted last year to change an ordinance so city-approved contractors could work on the private sewer lateral lines in alleys and streets.
We went through the effort, bought the equipment, trained our guys, went out and got bonded.
King wants to know if he's out that investment now that the council has voted to revert the ordinance so city crews will once again handle the work. While the change will go into effect in a few weeks, council also voted to create an ad hoc committee so city staff, citizens, and plumbers can study the issue and report its recommendations and findings to council. King hopes to be on that committee so he can recommend the city find a way to partner with the city-approved contractors who have already spent time and money to do the work.
I think we can come to a solution where we're able to do the work that the city is also doing and work in tandem to get to a point where the citizens are better served.
Rushing says he plans to join the committee as well, but says there's no way plumbers in Lubbock can beat the city's prices.
They were talking $800,000 to $900,000 a year for all the sewer taps they were doing, but they're talking $1,000 to $1,500 a piece. Well, I promise you, there's not a plumber in Lubbock that's going to go do those for $1,000 or $1,500. I'm in the business to make money, and so I have to price myself accordingly to where I make a profit. They're not fixing those to make a profit.
Still, Rushing says he hopes the committee can find a better solution for everyone. Property owner Jody Patton is happy with today's outcome.
I think that the council members actually took time to research what had happened and how long it had been in effect and what was going forward. They spoke with the plumbers who were here who did an excellent job.
But she says she's still out $3,500. Councilwoman Latrell Joy says she is still looking into ways to reimburse those property owners like Patton who found themselves caught in the gap.
We needed to get to the point we are today because that way we will know more about how many claims there might be. I think it still needs to be considered, but there has to be some equity in it because some people paid more per linear foot than others, and so we'll have to come up with an equitable way to do that, but I think it's important to do it.
Shaley Kidwell, KCBD, investigates.
City Council is one step closer to approving an ordinance that affects every property owner across the city. The council has found a compromise when it comes to private sewer lateral lines and who should pay for repairs on public rights-of-way.
KCBD News Channel 11's Shaley Kidwell has the latest from today's meeting. Shaley.
Karen and Namner, this is a copy of the new ordinance presented to City Council today. It addresses work to the portion of a property owner's private sewer lateral line that runs from the fence line here to the city main. As we've reported, the city has gone back and forth on who should pay for repairs to this portion of line in public rights-of-way like streets and alleys. Well, here's the compromise. City crews will handle the repairs or replacements to this portion of the line. Property owners will pay a standard cost to the city water department of $1,000 per repair. City staff says that money will cover average material and labor cost associated with each repair. That $1,000 payment will reimburse the expenditures in the city's capital improvement plan. A payment plan is available for owner-occupied properties, but it cannot exceed 365 days or 12 monthly billing cycles. An assistance program for low-income residents will be developed by city staff. $300,000 is appropriated in the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget for the establishment of that assistance program. Expenditures for the repairs are funded by the capital improvement program, but again, that flat fee of $1,000 will go back into the program. The first reading of the ordinance took place in today's City Council meeting. It was approved 6-1, with David Glasheen voting against it. There must be a second reading before it takes effect. Karen and Abner.
Thank you, Shaley.